Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bájò, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bájò, olúwa mi ò dìde ojú
The Ashen Forge. Ashen's the Ashen Forge.
Hello and welcome to the Ashen Forge. I am Phantom X, joined as always by Diggs and the legendary Neurotoxin. How y'all doing?
Great.
Okay.
We are back. My apologies. And the reason we were not here last week, I got pretty sick. Actually, I'm still recovering. I'm going to try to not cough my way through this whole show. Get some tips from Steven on how to not cough so much. It's already starting to come. But anyways, what y'all been up to?
I just
Playing
finished
some of the
the. Yeah, you've been playing. Have you been playing?
I've
What
been
did I
playing
see? Star Citizen.
Abiotic Factor. I've been playing Star Citizen. Yeah, Star Citizen actually had the update that finally makes the graphics work as well as it should have from the beginning. So it's actually playable now. Still heats the hell out of my machine, and it still has, some of its normal sort of funky wonky stuff that'll occur, but it's definitely doing a lot better now, to the point where I actually felt like getting in a ship and flying around for the first time instead of like, nah, it's too chunky for that, I'll just take a gunner seat, thanks. So that's nice to see, and they're steadily making progress with it. It's not a game I expect to release anytime soon, and I hope this is just a low-level optimization pass compared to what it really needs to have by release time to not chew up everyone's machines, or that it'll still just take another like 2 hardware generations before it actually releases, and so there will not be too many systems, for enthusiast gamers that won't be able to run it because, the hardware right now won't even be what people are using anymore at that point. So we'll see what's going on with that as it goes on, but it's been fun. I've been playing Abiotic Factor. It's been fun. That's the one that's like being a scientist in the Half-Life 1 Black Mesa facility when the thing goes down. In fact, it even has references to like a resonance cascade chamber, for example, if I'm not mistaken. So it's got the graphics that look like Half-Life 1 in its own, original style. It very much feels like something from that universe. Very fun to play, interesting take on the survival sandbox, build base and extend out sort of game. So it's been fun to play with the dope crew there in chat here, and various associated peoples. So that has been pretty enjoyable. I've been
So wait.
having my eye
I have
on
a question.
Nightingale
I have a
too.
question.
Oh, go ahead.
How So do you think Star Citizen is going to release before 2030?
There's your answer.
Does it have to?
I don't know. I'm just saying.
I don't know.
I remember back in 2019, people were saying that Ashes is the Star Citizen of fantasy MMORPGs. Is it going to be Star Citizen? Is it going to take? And I think people were talking about how long Star Citizen and Star Citizen being a scam and all that stuff. That was in 2014, 2015 already, right? And I don't even remember when they started. But it's been at least 10 years since people were saying that it was a scam and never going to release and all that. So I'm just,
Well,
it doesn't, I don't know when it has to release. I'm just saying, do you think it's going to be before 2030?
Their first mistake was using Amazon's lumber cry that they then had to heavily modify instead of just using Unreal 4 and then bumping it to Unreal 5 when that came around. I think they would have released it by now if they did that, because golly, I don't know that it's necessarily the content team having a hard time making all the content for the game, though the tools may have been better depending on what they were using. They call it the Cry engine because that's what the devs do when they use it. It's terrible. Making a variation of it, slapping on some Amazon lumber or whatever, ain't it gonna make it no better. And yeah, like maybe it'll release before 2030, maybe it won't. I believe Squadron 42 is about to release. And so that's a Star Citizen project. That's not the persistent universe, but part of this optimization pass, I believe, is part of the optimization they've done with Squadron 42. So it should at least be of this level of quality for people who play it. I hope the AI is better and you're still not doing a bounty hunt mission where there's two of them, you kill one of them, and the other one, feeling outnumbered despite having a zippy ship that can completely outrun you, decides, oh no, I'm the last one left, and just rams straight into you and suicides you. And like, unless you got a real beefy ship and you'll be spinning around, you might even like pass out and die of like, too many G's if you're spinning too fast. You're gonna die from that, and it's really lame. It's a terrible gameplay loop. So I don't really bounty hunt as much. So that's the sort of thing that I think they're going to need to do more work on before they actually plan on releasing the game. But there's a lot of stuff. I think the mechanics might have been the thing. Mechanics and the dev tools have probably held it back way more than anything else. And all the work that needs to go on the engineering and mechanics and everything. So, one day, but as it gets better, it's at least getting to the point where it's more playable. I heard one person in the hangar area at the base saying that this is their first time back since 2022, and then the other one said, "Oh yeah, this is the first time back since 2019." So, I guess this was a good update. Anyway, that's not even what we're talking about. We've almost spent 10 minutes talking about things that aren't even Ashes of Creation, except to compare Star Citizen with Ashes of Creation, which I don't think there's a really clear comparison there. If Ashes of Creation was like Star Citizen, we would have been playing a persistent alpha this entire time, and they would slowly introduce a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it would be I think a much higher studio burn rate for a lot lower turnover, and they would be either less far in production or they would have started cutting corners because the community is satisfied with things up to a certain point instead of letting it get fleshed out to its entirety and then letting people try it. So no, I don't actually think they're comparable whatsoever. I would have said closer to Chronicles of Illyria, except one of them is I think a lot more responsibly funded, and the other one, I'm not entirely sure, but it doesn't sound like everything was going very well to do a loot box sale and then immediately announce that you're shutting the doors like 2 months later. So,
Speaking
that's
of Chronicles of Illyria, did a little birdie tell me that Intrepid got a new addition to their team?
yeah, I mean, people who looked on people's LinkedIn's and stuff might see, but
Yeah.
they're already working on it.
I think that
All
is the
right.
answer you're going to get.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's like a lot of public fanfare. They don't usually name names of all the people they hire every month.
Apparently
So
they do sometimes.
They do
depending
with
if
some of the
it's
senior folks. That's true.
well, that's true. We might get that announced on the next one because they officially started on the 5th, I believe.
I don't know if that bodes well. We've got people that we normally follow. We'll see if that's a harbinger or not. Yeah. I just finished the battle pass for Fortnite. I got all the stuff that I wanted from the battle pass Friday night. And I think the new battle pass starts in a week or two or something like that. So um since I finished early, I was able to get some sleep, and I'm not playing anything with the two of you, so that means I'm not staying up extra late trying to do other stuff with you guys or asynchronously with you guys. Speaking of that, I watched the dev stream with Ghostcrawler for the game he's working on, Ghost. That comes out about once a month for called Word on the Street, and they were asking about playing with friends, and he was saying he thinks a good way to go is asynchronous play. That um, it's not a game made for solo players, and you're going to want to have friends. But he said he likes the idea of, and he mentioned Valheim, which is when I first kind of noticed it, of gathering stuff to help your friends build. Like, you might not be on at the same time, but you can still kind of play for each other. And
Yeah. I kind
I
of see
do
that in
agree.
paxdei as well.
hmm Yeah, I do like that. And we played that way, or I played that way with the two of you and Nightingale.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that kind of stuff.
Sorry, I'm laughing because I think we've talked about 5 games now, and none of them are Ashes of Creation. Is that where we're at?
Mhm,
Oh, we brought up
mhm,
ashes here and there.
mhm.
So there was an AMA. It was great.
Yes.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there was. It was a really good AMA. There was some good answers to questions, some good follow-up questions. So much to go. I don't know where you all want to start. I don't
Start
have
from the
Where to
anything
top.
begin?
pre-planned.
Start
Well,
from the top.
I think there
Guild
are
tools.
probably some things that might. I know Diggs, you had some strong thoughts afterwards about Alpha 2 and whatnot. So we don't have to go one by one if there are things you'd rather start off talking about.
No, I don't care.
I'm a little sketchy about some of the guild tools he was talking about because as I had said in the Discord chat channel, I do like some of the amount of info, but I'm worried that a leader-driven metric like that might be even more insidious than DPS. That like participation and knowing more about each player and each character than the player might actually want to be, revealing or getting into, and just knowing it automatically might not be something that everybody's into. Um, I get the feeling that people who are casuals with kids are just automatically going to be thrown in the weakest group that has the least amount of the passive upgrades. If they're even allowed to stay to begin with. Um, crafters who've been on and off for the past few months, they haven't even gotten to max level while the other people already have. Maybe dropping them. It's participation instead of DPS as the mechanic that guild members, guild leaders rather, would be able to have, as well as how much you can kind of see into the everyday lives and details of each member of the guild. That um, definitely feels like something where each of those is a thing you would be able to have the option to flag as private or public, or not public even, but private or, restricted. And so if you don't want to share your location or your activity time or what activity you've been doing the most recently, for example, that you can click those off on the flags, and then your guild master can say, hey, I want to know more about when you're doing, this, that, and the other. It's like, nah, it's fine. I'm not really looking to share those details. And then, maybe they kick you, maybe they don't. But, if you don't want to reveal certain details for whatever reasons, to be able to not have to do that. And have like the ability to see how active players are in general. It's something that definitely makes me worry. And I guess the one thing I hope for is that if a GM is going to have that amount of capability to look into the details of their members, that it actually requires some of the passive points. So in order to have that level of coordination over who's doing what and whatever, you're going to have to sacrifice some of your potential upgrades that you would have otherwise been able to spend the points in. That way, if you've got like a super guild that you're trying to keep super organized and tidy like that, you're gonna have to pay a little extra fee for it, effectively, in terms of your investment in this stuff. So what do you guys think about that? How much do you want your guild leader to be able to know about your gameplay activity, what you do, your family, where you live, and all of that sort of stuff?
I think for us it doesn't matter, right? I think we would be a casual guild and know all that stuff anyway and not care.
Yeah. Yokai made it.
But
Eridan says no freaking way.
Yeah, and Yokai made a good point either. It's not your guild, your play style. You're probably not gonna join him anyways.
Yeah, that's true.
um but just join a smaller casual guild. I mean, right? That's the cool thing, is that you don't have to be a part of the what's the cap? 200 members? You can just do a smaller guild and get different perks and be a
It's
maxers and
300
30.
members. It's 300 members, and that was something that finally hit me. Why is it 300? Why are guilds increments of 30 players for the sizes of their groups that you can, passively buy into having more of? That is weird to me because the raid size is 40, not 30. So why isn't it based on 40 as the unit, or even 20, but 30 for something where you organize in groups of 40? It seems a bit weird to me. And I understand the idea that if you have 60 people, then there's a chance that of those 60 you will be able to have 40 on, because 20 of them will have their other responsibilities. So sure, from that angle I get it, but it's just odd to me that a guild isn't even able to fill out an entire raid group if you keep it as small and tidy and powerful as you can. So it's a little odd to me. It
And
isn't something that I'd even thought about until just recently. So clearly isn't such like a big deal that it's like, oh my God, I've been saying this for years, guys. This is still wrong. And I don't think it's such a big deal that they need to do anything about it. It just finally struck me. It's like, well, wait a minute. If we're talking like base 840 for, your party and your guild size, then where did 30 come from? And they might change it at some point.
yeah, and so what does that mean for your Castle Siege. Isn't Castle Siege supposed to be 250 versus 250?
Yeah, I mean, if you can have a max of 300, then sure.
Yeah, but that
Uh,
means
uh,
some people won't be participating?
yep. Maybe they're all queued up on the outside in case people drop and need to get filled in with others.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you've got
And
250 people doing anything, I always worry about connectivity and stuff. 500 people clashing heads, any sort of thing, and also the amount of attention required. If someone has to take a break, it's like, I gotta go walk the dog. It isn't something where you're gonna, go AFK in the middle of battle for 10 minutes. You're gonna want to drop out and let someone else come in.
I wonder if 30 is intended to foment some friction so that guilds will splinter rather than staying cohesive.
I don't know, but the whole talk of you got your day group, you got your night group, you got your this group, you got your that group, but they're all comprised of 30-person groups with all the passives that are specific to them. That's odd. Like again, if the groups are units of 40, that would make a lot more sense
Well,
to me, because then you're juicing at least an entire active group's worth of people potentially.
I mean, you have to
Mhm.
think of where Steven's coming from, though, right? I mean, his guild, the White Order, and this is all out there. You can go to YouTube and a bunch of different places, watch him play.
It's a big
They
change from his first guild, Darkness.
yes, but they had different groups, right? He was the lead of the Navy, but they had the Navy. I forget all what they had, but I think they had
Mhm.
3 different groups. So I start seeing like how he structured his guild and how the plan here is to set aside these core, your core group and your other group and this group. Because I have to wonder if you can assign the passives. Like, do you, do they plan on? Would you be able to assign things that benefit a navy, things that benefit a foot army? And is that a purpose here of being able to do things by group? I don't know. Otherwise, it seems kind of weird structure wise. But definitely his GM leadership days are showing here. It wasn't even the text messages and everything. It was when what did he say? He wanted to know their performance, his guild members' performance. I'm like, well, wait a minute. You're not letting us have DPS meters. The whole reason for that was because you don't want to exclude people, and you whatever you want people to all play together and be nice and whatnot. But if you're trying to give guild leaders tools for performance, I mean that's like, well, why? You might as well do DPS meters too, right? I mean, I guess we don't
Yeah.
really know what performance means there, but it seemed contrasting from what has been said before. So,
I agree.
which again, as Yokai said, I mean, and as you have said, Nora, we're probably not going to be a part of that kind of a guild anyways. So, for us, it won't matter. We aren't going to be sweaty guild players. So,
Yeah.
One of the nice things is
Hey,
you talk.
Nero,
Oh,
I saw you were playing Star Citizen instead of Ashes, so no good. We'll have to
that's
kick you out
true.
again.
There are
hey,
some people that do that on Discord. If
when
they if
Ashes of Creation builds in the components for me to hop in my ship, in my equipment, hop down in the pilot seat, blast off into space, and do some wacky stuff out among the stars, then yeah, I will do my Star Citizen stuff in Ashes of Creation. Otherwise, yeah, I play more than one game, that's right. Dig it. I also play Destiny 2
yeah.
because there was new
Mm-hmm.
story content. And I play it a
Mm-hmm.
little every week because that's how they dish out the content. That's right. I also have other things that I do. Hey, have you
Mm-hmm.
played any of the arcade games I worked on? Because I'm working on another.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
I
mhm.
still wonder. Sorry, we can move on from guilds, but like I mean, I kind of understand the rationale, right? That smaller guilds will be able to focus all of these passives into one group versus having to split them up. Um, but the guilds, it's a zero sum. Like you're all going to get the same. I mean, you can spec into stuff and still get the same benefits. It's just distributed differently.
Well,
it's
Um,
but
it's the no. The way that I understand it is that the primary group has the most ability to be augmented, and all
mhm.
of the subsequent groups have a lower ability to be augmented, that they don't have as much power as the primary group. And so while you engage in the organization of being in the guild and you share a lot of the benefits and everything that's been built up as a part of being in the guild, some of the things will be the stuff that's specifically built into that set of passives for that group for what they do. So if you have a group that's specifically your crafters, you can, instead of paying into all the general stuff that everybody would normally be using for like combat and other things, you can just focus specifically into crafting, and potentially for them even divest in the combat upgrades that other people would normally be getting. And so you'd be able to have some specificity, but that group, where they get their strength compared to a group of 30, is that they have the entire guild's resources available and connections available to them, versus that guild of 30 only has that guild of 30. I'm sure they have other connections and people they work with, and hopefully they are well resourced, but 30 people compared to what 300 people can do to contribute to them, if you've got an entire branch of a guild that's just gathering, you've got an entire branch that's just processing. In fact, even more than that, could be an entire branch that's just mining and
Mhm.
like lumbercraft and stuff like lumberjacking, yeah, that sort of stuff. And then you've just got like a few different groups out of a few different specificities, because you aren't even trying to do all of everything. You want a few good things that you specialize in, but you also want to be a top rating guild, and so you want to power people up into that. So you're going to be building up a lot of points because you got a lot of people participating, but you've got to dilute where you're able to actually spend it and invest it. Not everybody in all the groups, even in the first group, is going to be getting all of everything in the same way, where a smaller group of 30 would be able to keep all of their upgrades and stuff tidy to their group. And if they're a very specific and focused group, that might be the best way for them to achieve their goals. For example, I likely will have a guild that specializes in exactly two things: crafting weapons that are best against corruption, and uh, some sort of combatants that go out and hunt corruption enemies. And that'd probably be about it, if I even have it as two groups, if it isn't just 30 people that pick up some randos.
but I thought also the you could split apart, so the ones that aren't just capping themselves at level 30, guild level 30, have a broader amount in whatever their specialization is, so that you're not getting the exact, you don't have access to all the same stuff. Like if you're capping yourself at level 30, then you won't have all the same stuff
No,
as
it
a
isn't a
larger
capping
guild.
yourself as it's the not investing points into the passive improvement points into having more and more groups, that you're saving those passive points specifically for things that, as he said, at first they're side grades, but then they'll start becoming upgrades. So instead of having a lot of side grades going around everywhere and a little bit of this and a little bit of that, um, it's something where you don't spend those passive points. The 30 member guild So if they can proportionately gain passive points at the same rate as the size 300 guild, they would be able to keep pace with their power level. If guilds at all sizes have a passive point cap, then what that would mean is the smaller guild, when they reach the cap, would have been able to spend all of their points, as many as possible, into their passive upgrades for their small group, versus the larger group, part of their cap is being expended just in having all the other 9 groups added on.
Well, this says the higher the guild's member cap, the fewer available skill options will be available to that guild. So the maximum size for a guild that chooses all available skill options will be between 30 and 50.
Okay.
Yeah. So, right, you're getting more skill options if you stay at level 30 or level 50 rather than
I don't
going
think it's a
300.
level, not a level, but a quantity, a member cap of 30 or
Well,
50.
yeah, you're right. You're right. Member cap. That's what I meant. Yeah. Um, so, uh, yeah, keeping it at level 30 will give you more, I mean, membership of 30 will give you more skill options.
Yep. So the next one they touched on was story arcs. So the idea that some story arcs will be specific to top level play, that they aren't accessible until you've reached max level. Okay, that's fine. You don't do heroic stuff as a peasant. You do heroic stuff once you've built up to being a hero. That's fair. I understand that. But also, along the way, there will be story arcs where the actions that occur from lower level players' engagement will feed up into higher level players and their engagement, and those will be story arcs that everybody participates in and feeds into and facilitate how they occur. Now, to that extent, I have no idea. There was no specificity given on, is one of them going to be the one that's more like permanent and world changing, or are they both potentially able to be world changing, but likewise potentially able to be less world changing and more like turn some flags on, like Carfin's reopened for the season or something like that.
I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to say because everybody
Because
can participate in a story arc.
oh no,
So
what I'm
some,
saying is the results of the story arc. If the story arc that everybody at all level ranges participates in, is that the kind that will like permanently and irreversibly change the gameplay world, or is that reserved for ones that are only max level players that are completing special story arcs that involve max level play? Are those the ones that cause the permanent, irreversible changes to the game world?
I'm not even
Or
aware of
is
what
it
you mean.
uh,
What's a
when
permanent, irreversible change? I haven't ever heard that
it by
being said.
by that it's the idea of things that advance the narrative of the server beyond a threshold to which there's no going back.
I've
I
never heard that
believe
before.
I believe those are definite. I'll have to find the reference on it, but I'm pretty sure that's the intent for how servers progress and mature and have differences. Not just that all of the nodes and who's done what is different, but the choices that have been made based on how the story arcs have been engaged will also make permanent changes. In fact, I remember Stephen was talking about, I think this was around when Carfin was demonstrated, that the first time something like Carfin, for example, gets completed, the results of that will be permanent. And if when Carfin comes back again, you can complete all of the content of it, but it won't change the state of the world from how it had been changed from the first time. So Carfin is actually an example of something where once it's been offered as an example of something that once it's been done, it's done, and you have the results of it that affect the game world permanently and irreversibly. But then it'll still come around seasonally, so people can go back and farm the 6 floors of it in groups of like 8 groups, 2 or 3 to a floor, like he was talking about, and kind of farm the spots, which sitting around farming doesn't feel like fun to me. But the idea that once it's actually been completed, that change is permanent.
I
So
have
my one
never heard permanent or irreversible
yeah,
used.
that
Oh, yeah.
it has
They've talked about
they've definitely
yeah,
talked about it.
because Yokai had mentioned something about sunsetting content that I wanted to bring up too. Because I think correct that they mentioned in the past that there would be a time frame to actually complete the story arc in order to affect change, but then you would essentially be able to replay it after that, but it wouldn't actually cause a change to the story arc beyond a certain period of time. They have said that.
It's not a
Yeah.
permanent change to the world. That is something not coming back again into rotation. That's not the same thing as permanently changing the
Well,
world.
moving from one, I mean, assuming you successfully complete the story arc, you're
Yeah.
moving on to a new story arc. So that's, I think, what Neuro means by
Yeah.
changing the world.
Okay.
But they definitely had said, Stephen definitely had said when a story arc that affects change to the world is completed, it takes
All
the
of them affect
results of
change. All of them affect change.
a change that if you complete it this way, you get result A that permanently changes the world.
There's
If
no
you get
permanently changing the world.
all
That's not
right,
the same thing as the story arc
well,
ending and not coming back.
I'll come back. I'll come back to that one when I've got a better
Yeah.
reference for you. But that's
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely how it goes. Anyway, I will say, the whole thing about farming in Carfin doesn't sound like fun to me. It was
Mm.
about instancing, and there will be instances at all levels, individual, party, and raid sized. So there are things where you won't be interrupted by other players. That's nice to have. But a lot of things will be open. And he said that the dungeons are farm enough. They're large enough that you can stake out an area to hunt and farm creatures. And it's expected that people would kind of settle into different groups and sectors of these places. And if they overstep their bounds, maybe someone will gank someone. Maybe they got some, they'll have some beef or like start stealing each other's monsters or whatever. But that doesn't sound like fun to me. That is like the opposite of the sort of going above and beyond an MMO that I was hoping for Ashes of Creation. The idea of sitting down in an area and farming spawns to try to get stuff is like seemingly the antithesis, and I've said this before, for the sort of game they're trying to make here. If you're trying to make a game where things change and actions matter, it feels like that really runs into a brick wall if you're trying to sit in a place to get something specific and special because somebody has gotten it there once before. That ain't my jam. It's never been my jam. I remember back in like maybe it was 1999, maybe it was a little bit after that. A school buddy. I went over to his place. We're hanging out. Went and played Secret of Mana for like 2 hours. Came back out, and his brother was in these 4 rooms in EverQuest hunting gnolls, and nobody was bothering him. And he said it was like absolutely great. Come out from playing the game, he's still there doing that. It's like, yeah, nobody's bothered me. This has been fantastic. It's like, golly, you're going between 4 rooms in a dungeon in EverQuest 1 trying to hunt these gnolls, and because nobody is disturbing you and you have free access to them, you're just having the time of your life. Like, that's like the most boring chore. I'd rather fold boxes. At least I'm doing something. So, it's something that I know it's a form of gameplay that'll exist, and I really hope I don't settle in and start being like, yep, well, it's just time to farm this mob because it's got the thing I want and I can't do nothing about it. That doesn't sound like fun. That does not sound like the sort of gameplay experience for me. And more, going back to my point, it doesn't sound like a gameplay mechanic where things are progressing in a game world. I could understand if every time you kill these things, they raise themselves once more beat up, more ragged, less gear than they had last time. But that's not how this is. There's just going to be the same mob respawning in the same place, and maybe it drops the item, maybe it doesn't.
It's not
That's
supposed to
boring.
be the same mob though, because mobs are supposed to change even uh every time you go back. It's supposed to be a different variation of mob. Um it's not going to
Okay,
have the same abilities and all that stuff. So
okay, so let's see how that actually works itself out. If how much variation they're going to have, and doesn't matter if this one shoots ice and eats fire or shoots fire and eats ice if they drop the same stuff and are effectively interchangeable. I like that
mm,
they're different than each other.
mhm.
I like that they're trying to block the melee attacks instead of just taking them. But, ultimately it's, you know, a similar unit and you're just sitting there waiting for another one to pop up so you can knock it back down. That doesn't feel even heroic. That it just
uh
feels like a grind.
Niker, I don't know that I said every single time. I don't think I said every time.
But they are supposed to change. They're not supposed to stay
Yeah.
exactly the
I don't know
same.
if
That
it's
is
going to be
correct.
exactly every time, but it's supposed to be some permutation that's, uh, I don't know if I want to say close to that. I don't think it's going to be every time, but it's going to be frequently, or it's supposed to be frequently.
Where are we at? I think I've just completely zoned out. What the hell's going on?
Okay, so I was gonna switch to the next one here. Tolnar. The first description kind of sounded like tribal, but then city states, and so I'm just thinking of approximately like ancient to 1800s Europe. Like, there's people that get around. There's like your more I'm not gonna call them druidic, but like tribal, nomadic sort of folk like the Sami in the Laplands that, um, you know, more lived off the land and kind of move with the seasons. Or I don't know about their history, but the Romani, the G word, getting around. For anybody who cares. Would be caravanning around, from place to place where they're welcome while they're welcome, and then move along to the next one, sort of thing. And that sort of society requiring there to be established towns and cities and locations for them to settle at and do some trade and entertainment before they move on. So that's kind of I'm thinking about both ranges of that for peoples that get around, but even more so the level of tribalism and how much you're going to see a lot of effectively small towns versus how many of them are going to be small consolidated city states. It's not a consolidated government by any sorts. They're very widespread. I wouldn't call them a diaspora so much as a assorted people that dominate the underworld, underrealm, underplace, the underwear. No. Maybe that one too. I don't know how many people are going to be running around with naked Tolnar.
I don't know.
Probably a lot.
The answer just sounded like any other game where we've had a group of a race or a group of people that exist in the game. I mean, I don't think of like any game that's had humans or out. Like you always have factions that don't get along or do get along and have cities and elves and
But
orcs and so I didn't see anything like super different in that answer except for I am curious what a metropolis looks like underground. I think that could be kind of neat, but
that was the question. It was phrased in such a way that made me wonder, is there only one location in the Underrealm that supports a metropolis? Or was there once a metropolis somewhere that we can visit that's a point of interest, but there's multiple Underrealm nodes and all of them are viable to be a metropolis? That's the part I was confused on.
There's multiple nodes, but a metropolis is 1/5 of the world. Right. So, right.
Well,
Any of those nodes within that can become the metropolis.
I see. So, not the metropolis, as in the node in which is contained so much as the entire, vassaldom of everybody below the metropolis is counted as part of. Okay, so that makes sense then that there would just be the one metropolis, and that also answers. I think I had asked it and it had been answered before. If there was an interconnectivity between surface and underrealm where you could have part of a surface place and part of an underrealm place as part of one connected vassaldom or something. Sounds like the answer is no then.
I think so. But I'm not sure how that's going to connect, like locking out. You would still have to lock out nodes above you, right? If as
Maybe.
the underrealm ones are, if an underrealm gets to be a metropolis, there's got to be nodes above that or somewhere on the surface that's getting locked out and not able to become a metropolis.
Right. Well, then that would actually talk about that would speak to there being potentially interconnectivity between the surface and below, and that a metropolis below would actually trickle up into the surface areas. That'll be
I don't
interesting to know more about.
know. Yeah, I don't
If
know in that way. I think it just locks them out from the surface ones from being able to progress.
ah,
But we'd have to see.
interesting.
I don't know. We haven't seen anything about the underrealm, so we don't know.
Let's see. So that one, I'd love to know more about and see Tolnar Metropolis. I'd like to see everyone's Metropolis in different regions too. So,
Well, we only have one node type, so
I was
well,
waiting for you to get to that question to that.
we actually are going to have 4 different node types. They all are just going to use the democratic voting scientific academic format because they haven't built the other ones in yet. They plan to. They plan to get them in, but right now, because they've got one that works, that's what they're going to use. That said, it doesn't mean all of the nodes are science academic nodes. They're going to have all of the features and various what's it called? Not contracts. Things that you get from the board, commissions, and upgrades and things that correlate with each of those different types. So it'll be a node that has a voting based structure but has an auction house because it's actually an economic node. They just don't have the economic system in yet. So
you
it
just don't
sounded
have
like
the
they
voting
plan to.
system.
Yeah, they're particular system of governance. It sounds like they said each of the alpha updates are going to. Did I hear that correctly? Each one is going to roll out one more node until they've got them all out. So
I don't think he
2.1, 2.2,
specifically said that.
2.3. Okay.
I don't know that was specifically said.
I know there was something specific about it being part of an update. I might have parsed it
Mhm.
incorrectly, but I thought it was every dot 1.2.3
I think
off of it was going to correlate with adding one.
Yeah, I think the only mention of like coming in the next expansion or the next update or whatever Alpha 2 was the Rogue and the Summoner. I don't know that they specifically mentioned node types. So what do you think about that? Here we are, Alpha 2, and you have the scientific node.
No, if they
If-
have all 4 node types and it's just the voting, that's fine.
Is that
I
what he
would
said?
say even if scientific actually used a different form of governance, they would still probably all use a voting system right now because it's the easiest way and they've already implemented it once. So it's, I think, more using the thing that works that they've already got and not having to stress about those systems being put in. It could very well be that they want to get feedback on other systems and fix those first before they even care about working on the governance stuff, or that they need certain feedback in certain, performance and player interaction mechanics, not mechanics, analytics, before they'll actually be able to say, okay, this is the right amount of people for this size of place and all of that sort of stuff, to be able to better get people going to the places and setting them up house there and upgrading the places and stuff. Seeing how that all flows and works before starting to add the other systems to add another layer of complication to it. So
Aren't we
it's not
supposed to
necessarily
have
a bad thing.
Aren't we supposed to have another live stream before Alpha 2 that's dedicated to nodes?
Maybe not.
I'm pretty
It
sure
might
he
have.
said that the last time he did that node update. Yeah, we've got node wars. Um, and I think some people have been saying node siege, and there's a difference between node wars, but I think it's supposed to be node wars, not node sieges. But I thought there was going to be something about how nodes work, and it was different than node wars. But okay, maybe node wars is what counts. I mean, I would like to see more about even not even just the difference between scientific and divine. We'd still like to be able to see difference between what have we seen? Kalar, Valoon, what have we seen progress actually?
Mostly just
Um,
Kalar.
yeah. Um, so yeah, we nodes are supposed to be the thing that makes Ashes different from every other MMORPG. I think just about everything we've seen is all basic UE5 MMORPG mechanics that can come from UE5 tools. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that's um, game changing based on UE5. Um, and
Well, some of the
so the
tools
difference
that
is
they
going to
use to make the world, like not things that we see, but things that they see on the dev side, are some of the
I'm
things that
talking
were
about
important.
gameplay. Yeah, I'm talking about
Mhm.
gameplay.
We actually
Um,
get to play it because the art team was able to complete stuff. That's how it affects gameplay.
yeah, but that's not the port I'm supporting Ashes for. I'm supporting it specifically for the node mechanics. Um, and the node mechanics that I'm supporting is not voting. So it would be nice to see some of that um,
I
at
like
some point.
not just listening to what people say, but sort of how they say it. That's part of what I do in my career and understanding people. And my notes that I took from watching this, and again, the specific question was what nodes will be available at the start of Alpha 2, and or will all nodes be available? And Steven said, no, I can say that definitively.
Hmm.
So
Mm.
there was an extra line there, an extra word of definitively. So
That's why it sounds to me, I don't know where Nero got the clarification from that it's going to be all nodes, just they're all going to be using the same voting. But
Well, that's
well,
what he said. He said that
yeah, he did say
they're
voting was
still
going to
going to
be.
have the expression of the different node types in their facilities. It's just that they're going to use the voting system
Oh, that for
initially.
testing elections. That yeah, they'll use the scientific, but it said my notes at least said they will likely test aspects of other nodes before those nodes come online. And that's kind of the bulk of what they said. So I don't know what that
yeah, but
means.
your notes, Phantom, say to me what I got from it, which was that it's just going to be the scientific node at the start, and later they're going to add in the other node types, which is different than what Neuro is saying.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not saying all the forms of governance and government will be in from the start. I'm saying you will find things that are specific to military, economic, and um, trade in the nodes that belong to those positions on the map. They'll still use the scientific voting system, but commissions and other things that will be available, potentially buildings and services, I get the feeling are going to be um, the ones from each of those different node types. So we don't literally just have science nodes everywhere and that's it.
I know you're saying that. I didn't get that from what I heard Steven say, but I will need to review what he actually said because I heard definitively not as well. Um, and so I will review that. I don't know for sure. I don't remember hearing what Nero said, but
So let's see. Then they talked a little bit about tanks and healers, or quote healer. It was actually cleric he meant to say. Um, and basically what it boiled down to was two things. You're not going to see rogue and summoner in the start of Alpha 2, but you'll see all the rest, which is cool. And then the other was expect every tank to be a tank and nobody else to be a tank. Expect a cleric to be a healer and nobody else to be a healer, except also a tank can spec to be attack and a healer can spec to be attack. So your clerics might also be attack and not even be healers and not even be tanks. And that to me was like the weirdest thing. It was like, instead of emphasizing fighters being able to stand toe to toe and do tank like stuff in a different way, or that other classes had different formats for how they can tank and how they could be the one to absorb damage, it was very specifically, no, a tank's a tank, of course. You got a tank because it's a tank. Every party's got to have a tank. It's a tank. You got to have your tank. And then
well,
you got to have your direct healer too, so you got to have your cleric, got to have your tank, got to have your cleric. That's just gameplay. You can't have a summoner with a healing buddy. You can't just rely on a bard. You got to have a cleric in the party. It almost sounded like he was saying any party is a tank, a tanking tank, a healing cleric, and one other of anything else.
no, the Ashes is supposed to be balanced for an 8-person group with one of each primary archetype.
Yeah, it is for sure. But the idea that
So that means you
if
have to have
my
a tank.
tank has built to be very damage heavy and less tanky, it doesn't sound like other people are going to be able to fill the gap.
Well,
And so that's a
you
little funky
you
that you
don't fill
have.
the gap. You don't fill the gap because it's the primary archetype. So the primary thing that tank will be doing, no matter what, is tanking because that's the active skills that they have. On top of that, they'll be able to do something else, but it's all they don't get different active skills. So there's still going to be a tank. A fighter's always going to be a fighter because that's the active skills that they have. That can change somewhat because you're putting augments on top of those active skills, but they're always using tank active skills. The fighter is always using fighter active skills. So they're always primarily a fighter first and always primarily a tank first.
Right. And if they're using their tank skills not as a way to protect the party, but they're using the ones that help them do the most damage and they're specking in the way that does the most damage, technically on paper they're a tank, but the way they've spec themselves and the way they play, they're a very selfish and I guard myself while I go do damage instead of doing things positionally sort of thing.
Again, that can't be the case because they're still using tank active skills. So they're
Oh no,
always
it's
playing like a tank.
they you're I'm not arguing that they don't have tank active skills. I'm saying the way the player plays the character because of the way they've spec'd it could be that you have a tank who isn't trying to tank whatsoever. They have tank skills. They might almost use it more like a paladin from WoW, their own self shield buff sort of thing, but that they aren't actually playing as a tank. And so you're going to have
You
somebody
have
who
to play
can.
as a tank. You
No,
have
you
to play as
don't.
a tank.
No, you
You do.
don't.
You do. There's no other way to play because you have tank active skills.
Just because you have them doesn't mean you're going to use them in the way they were intended as a
That
tank.
is the way that they're attended.
To mostly be out of position, being a jerk, guarding yourself, not helping your party,
If
because
you're
you like to
using
have
your
your
tank
face in
skills,
there.
if you're using
You
your
know,
tank skills, they're going to end up helping the party because they're tank skills.
they're not going to help the same way as somebody who is
That's the whole
actively
point. They're not
protecting.
supposed That's the intention, is they're not supposed to all help the same way, but they're still helping because you're primarily a tank.
Yes, Squirrel Team 6, indeed, tanks are jerks. No,
I get what they were
I
saying that there's no, of course, I guess it's the WoW head, the WoW mentality that you have the warrior tank, you have the druid tank, you have the paladin tank. You have different styles of being able to play a tank, and that appears to be missing on the surface here. So I get where that question was coming from. The same for the clerics. I mean, it's this, you have your priest and you have your druid and you have and again, Pally can heal. So I get why they're asking that question. I also get why Steven wants to try to keep it pretty tight and that you hopefully get that feel of differing gameplay from the secondary augments and from the different skills you can take in your weapon skills and all these things. Hopefully that's where you get that feel that you get, because it is different, right? Anyone that's tanked in WoW or healed in WoW, it is different to be um, a bear tank versus a protection pally or something like that. They do feel different. So I don't know. I don't know if that's in any way connected to the argument you all were just having, but that's my thoughts. Now everyone's quiet.
And I think in WoW, my druid is going to have different skills. Yeah, my druid is going to have different active skills, depending on how I spec it, which is not the case for Ashes.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how everything mashes together. This is going to get so complex with how to play a character when you start adding in
And it
your
should be.
primary skills, your secondary skills, your weapon tree, your just all
That's
these
the
different
intent.
things.
Trying to break
Yeah.
the best in slot thing
Yeah.
because there's so many variations. It's really hard to even say what's actually the best.
So that's where I get the source, or what I perceive to be the source of that question, of having just a tank and a cleric. But hopefully, you do get that flavor.
We easily have another episode's worth of content to talk about here. So
I like the whole reason. Yeah, the whole where did that go? The whole reason this conversation is happening is because we have 0 info augments. Well, he did mention that it is truly supposed to be impactful, right? It's not just changing the color of a spell or
Yeah.
flavor text. It's truly meant to change how you play. So
We might get to see augments before 2030. It's been 7 years so far with nothing.
well, yes, we do have plenty of content still. It was a good, for only going an hour or a little over an hour. There was a lot that came out of it. The one thing I wanted to mention before we try to wrap up or anything, I liked the explanation of the economic nodes, sort of the intent, anyways, behind it. The player stalls, the markets, the auction house. I think that helped clarify quite a bit of what the actual intent was. Well, the question was even wrong, right? It was, because we, as we understand it, these things only occur in economic nodes. It's like, oh, no, they actually occur anywhere except for the auction house. But the idea of being able to set up a shop in a dungeon and sell potions sounded very, just kind of blew my mind. I didn't even consider the idea. I used to play this
Well-
game called Rose Online. It's still there as a private server. Yeah, look it up. You'll laugh at me. It's fine. This is like 2002, 2003. But you could do that. You could go set up your shop like anywhere in the world, and people would do that. It was, and you would strategically pick, if you were someone that was selling food or selling buffs or whatever, you would pick an area that was combat. If you're selling parts for weapons or anything, then you would set up more in the city.
So then, Phantom, you would have to kill me so that people don't buy from my shop instead of your shop.
Well, so that's yeah. So I was curious.
There's risk. There's risk to setting up your shop in the dungeon.
Yeah. So I was, my immediate thought was risk versus reward, right? Because everything is hinged on risk versus reward.
Where risk stands for PvP, but go
Well,
ahead.
if I'm sitting in, I mean, he specifically used the example of selling in a dungeon. But where does PvP start and stop? Now, I believe the places where PvP, obviously in your house, in your freehold, you cannot be, you are free of PvP. And if I remember correctly, and anyone correct me if I'm wrong, the other was in a player stall. I'm pretty sure you are not allowed to be, so you can't just set up a shop and be PvP'd. So, but
Yeah, I was thinking that's when we were thinking it was within the node itself. Yeah.
well, I would assume that still applies. Because otherwise, what's the point? Like, people are going to set up a stall and then they're going to leave. Like you're not going to. Most people are not going to spend 4 hours staring at a screen waiting for someone to come along and buy something from them.
I don't
So
know that.
Well, I'm sure there will be someone that does that, but most people won't. So if you're able to just be killed, then yeah. But then the question becomes, leaving, having to leave with everything that you have.
See, this says players are not able to be attacked or robbed while occupying their player stall inside the limits of a node. But that's from 2017, so that's before we were aware that the player stall could be in a dungeon. So we'll have to see.
I have to think that still applies. There would be, it seems like it would be so mean to allow unsuspecting people to set up a player stall anywhere, not knowing that they were going to get pretty clearly killed pretty easily if there was PvP. So then you get into the question, what's lootable? Like if you technically have put your merchandise on a shelf in a store to sell, if your character dies, like do you drop some of that? Does that stay with the store? Like does the store despawn? Like I guess there's so much we don't know, but pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did say we can set up stalls anywhere. And it does not have to be so non-economic nodes can spec into having stalls, but they have to be within that node. Economic nodes, you can just set up your player stall anywhere. So pretty fun stuff. Well, anything else? We got more to go over, but I did want to hear about the I was curious because I assumed Diggs would say more. He actually said you said less than I thought you would about only having the scientific node. And
Well, it depends because if it's the way Neuro says, then that's fine. If it's we get to see them, but the only difference is it's just voting, then okay. If it's just the only thing that's in the game is scientific nodes, that's kind of wonky considering it's been 7 years and that's supposed to be a
I,
primary difference. So I'll give it a pass if it's just voting.
so what's this? He said shop. Shops are not stalls. I have to look at my notes. I thought player stalls. Player shops can be placed. Oh, that's true. Yeah, I'm getting mixed up here. You are 100% correct. Player shops can be placed within a node market. You spawn a UI billboard, create a player shop. Economic Metropolis's benefit is their player shops can be placed anywhere in the world, not just market proximity. And that is technically
Mhm.
different than a stall. So I don't know. The stalls are the ones that are within the node.
Mhm.
So
And then so the shop, it wouldn't necessarily be PvP, it would be just you could destroy the shop.
well, this raises whole new questions because what we knew to be PvP free were stalls. So I have no
Right.
idea at this point. That would be a great follow-up question for Steven. So
Yeah.
your shop is pretty much just you trading money. Yeah. I mean that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, L2 had this. I mean, that's what it sounds like. Man, that I'm thinking back to anyone that just doesn't really follow Ashes closely and they see that. That's dirty. That's like, hey, I can go set up a store and I can sell my stuff. And then they go to pee and they come back and they're dead.
The fact that you got to get it from an economic metropolis means there's going to be some effort involved even having that capability to begin with. It's not just going to be somebody who walks in the game for the first time. It's like, oh, time to set up shop. So I would hope by the time they're at the ability to do that, all of the rules and terms of it are well understood.
But
That's
would
the
it
hope.
be? I mean, I
I mean, I
guess.
don't know. Do you have to caravan your supplies
also
to the
see-
place you're going to set the shop up? That would make it
I mean,
interesting.
the player bears responsibility for some of this, so I don't care one way or the other. But because I
Also,
could also see.
how is it different than just going to a dungeon, having
Mm.
potions in your inventory, and saying, "Yo, dog, I'll trade you some potions for cash"? Like, what's the advantage that doing it this way would provide? That's different than just being a peddling, a potion peddler just sitting outside the dungeon, hoping you don't get ganked anyway.
Huh. So this, I'm looking at the differences. The personal shop, the player must be online and present at the shop. And this says the player stall is linked to the character's warehouse. The personal shop is linked to the character's inventory. Players may be killed while occupying their personal shop, and they're subject to material loss due to normal death penalties. That's for personal shop. For player stalls, players are not able to be attacked or robbed while occupying their player stall inside the limits of a node. So, yeah. It's a weird way to do trade, right? This personal shop seems like it's just trading. I don't know. That's weird. Anyway, seems like you can be attacked and you're subject to PvP for that personal shop in the dungeon.
I want to point this out too, because I was thinking this as well. It says money is bound, right? So that the idea of being able to trade a potion for some gold. I was just looking at the wiki. Over there, player to player trading. Because you might not be able to just actually. So, I don't know. Now I have a whole lot more questions because I was misconstruing stall with shop, and now I don't know what the hell's going on. So, yeah. So I don't know. Because I could have sworn I had read that as far as a way to battle RMT. Yeah, if you can't trade gold, then you don't. You battle RMT that way. But that doesn't seem to be in the wiki.
Which
I know
Which-
you can't trade glint, but I really don't know about currency.
Yeah, because glint is the primary, and monsters don't drop gold either; they drop glint. So
Yeah, that's right.
um,
I don't know if you can trade gold or not, but I think you would be able to trade resources. So it could be that they just trade you like 10 gold's worth of like gray vendor trash items in exchange for 10 gold's worth of potions. Which, from what I understand, those things are either really potent or you got a heap of them.
Yeah, I'm gonna laugh when potions don't do
supposed to be
anything.
a lot.
Here we are spending 30 minutes and we get to play, and who needs potions? Potions aren't shit. So
Well, I would hope that they're useful. Otherwise, I believe there's an entire like 1 or 2 sectors of the whole trade system that would just be kind of useless. I would imagine at the very least potions and alchemy stuff is going to be needed for some of the upgrade materials to try to +1 your weapon, and then +2 it at risk, and then +3 it at greater risk, and then eventually +5 it at very great risk. You probably shouldn't do that, bro. That's a really good weapon.
just sell don't sell potions, just sit there and sell dungeon runs. Sell protection. Did we fly
Well,
through?
sell the item people would actually be going in there to trade to farm for. Carfin robes, get your Carfin robes.
So I actually mentioning Carfin, I think we kind of went through quickly because I did want to focus a little bit. We talked about that the dungeon, right? I think that we did. But that the tower, he mentioned Tower of Carfin, 6 total levels, and each level supports 3 to 4 groups. Does that seem big? Does that seem small to you? I guess what is that? That's 8 times 4 max is 32. 32 times 6. Shit, I've been drinking this whiskey and now I can't do math.
You know, it's the difference between the words hunt and farm that I want to get clarity on. Hunt means there's a space that you're patrolling and going around waiting for mobs to spawn. Farm means you're just sitting there, you know where they're going to spawn, and you're just waiting to tap them and kill them.
So you have room.
If you're waiting, if it's farming, then it's going to be a lot smaller space. You're just sitting there in your rows or your rings or your whatever arrangements, waiting for the things in your area to pop out so you can get them. And that's that. If it's hunting them, that you have to like patrol around and find them and maybe access things to make them appear, well, then it's going to probably be a bit of a larger space. But
So,
I don't expect it's going to be gargantuan from what we've seen of it.
well, but looking, so this, I mean, they've talked about it being big, right? The Tower of Carfin is big. It has 6 levels.
Oh yeah,
So
it's big.
so I just did the math. 192 people can fit it there in any one time, based off what Steven said. Going with a max of 3 to 4 people, 4 times 8, 32, 32 times 6, 192. So in a server of 8,000, 10,000, and you have a big landmark like Tower of Carfin, and you can only fit less than 200 people in there. I don't know. I mean, that is 100% going to be a source of contention in PvP. That is for sure.
Yeah, I almost would rather it just be instance at that point.
Oh no, what fun is that? I want to see chaos. That is what I want to see.
Because I'd like to go through and kill everything in Carfin just once, and maybe not have them backspawn even. That awfully, be a nice sort of thing, and learn the lore. Or instead of it being backspawns, it's that after I've done certain things in one place, enemies from other place have come through a door I couldn't open, and filtered into position for a battle later on. That would be great. That would almost feel like the arcade sort of mission design that you would see in something like Destiny 2, for example. I'd love that. I'd love having something where it's actually a very directed, you go in, you do the things, you fight the stuff, you find what you find, you don't find what you don't find. There's things you do that facilitate other things. There's secrets to find, stuff like that. Not, well, there's this tower here, there's a bunch of stuff to farm, and the boss will pop up every now and then, but if you haven't formed the special crystal or whatever that allows you to trap its soul or whatever, then you're not going to be able to fully defeat it. So keep on farming until you complete it, and if you don't do it after enough time, the whole area will remain blood corrupted forever.
It's maybe that's right. Maybe that's the right number. I don't know. It seems in my little head small, but I'm sitting here trying to think back to where other games that actually had open dungeons, where you actually did have camps and things like that. So thinking of primarily like EverQuest, EverQuest 2. I'm trying to think of some of the bigger zones that you would set up camp in. I don't know. Maybe that's right. 200 people's maybe correct. I don't know. I'm sure they've done the math.
Everything's subject to change.
So, but yes, I am all for the chaos. I also, and we can talk about this maybe later, but I liked the answer about the PvP during boss fights. There seems to be a lot of people that want to be able to PvP, and do what they want to do, but when it comes their turn to do some boss fighting, they don't want PvP anymore. Like, what are you making that face for, Diggs? You know what I'm talking about.
I think people are saying they want a PvP, and I believe them.
So, I am also looking forward to the chaos of open world fighting occurring for raid bosses. So
I'll just be sitting on my Stufferton watching in any case, so eat my popcorn.
I just want to be the record keeper. That's going to be my job. Paying attention, basically. Recording where everybody acts fools. So, all right. We are starting to turn into like an hour and a half show consistently here. I guess that's a good thing. So we are going to, I think, cut loose for the night. I'm actually going to try to pop over. Don't think I can actually raid under my own name. Do y'all have anything
not
else
unless
to
you've
say?
given yourself all the admin permissions.
Yeah, I don't
But
think so.
this one was a good Q&A. It was a lot that we learned from it, and We have a lot more to talk about from it still. Changes to the idea of enemy of the state and how you fight the economic land management stuff. Easily a subject we can talk about for a while.
Oh, wait, I can send a raid. I was about to send us there without us saying goodbye. So had to cancel that real quick. Yeah, so we will be back next Sunday. We'll go over the rest of these questions. Whole lot of new questions that come up from this. So for all you new people that have been watching us, thanks for joining us. We do this every Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and we do have Discord, so certainly join us there as well. And yeah, we're gonna raid Vladis, I think. So
Yeah, send us on over that way.
well, now it
Good
won't let me.
stuff.
Did he cut
Oh,
loose?
well.
Oh,
Golly.
Let me try again. Let me do it before, and all I did was copy paste. All right, there it goes. All right, everybody. Thanks, and we will see you next week.
Yeah, and of course, if you missed it, you can always go back and watch this again. It's on a bunch of different platforms, and we appreciate the extra views and maybe a thumbs up every now and then too, if you feel like it.
Yes.
Like and subscribe. Go on your little brother and sister's phone and like and subscribe, and your dog's iPod. Go and like and subscribe on us there too.
Yes. YouTube does like the thumbs up. So, all right, y'all. Everyone have a great week, and we will see you back here next Sunday.
Like and
Peace.
subscribe.